Pull-up jumper. Off the rim and in. Oh! And the Thunder win!
All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song.
Wait.
When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Thunder Buddies podcast. I'm Darnell Mayberry, joined by Anthony Slater, who is on the road for this 3-game road trip. He's in New Orleans. Slater, how you doing?
Doing good. How's it feel? I think that it was the first time in Thunder Buddies history you've opened the podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward, and I'm in the studio by myself, and it's just kind of lonely. I miss my Thunder buddy.
Yeah, well, get used to it. That's what I've been having to do most of the time. But December, it's going to be you in there.
Yeah, you're going to be on the road. How's New Orleans treating you?
Good. I'm sitting in downtown New Orleans right now. I stayed an extra day before I went to Philadelphia. Bourbon Street's nice. It's a super unique city, obviously, just with the cultural, aspect of it all. And I think I made the right choice staying in New Orleans an extra day instead of going to Philly an extra day earlier. What would you have done in this situation, NBA traveling expert?
I would have stayed in New Orleans, especially in early December. There's no reason to rush to Philadelphia.
No, yeah, I looked at the forecast. Right now it's cloudy, but it's 70 degrees in New Orleans. I think it was something like 35 in Philly, and overcast, probably snow sprinkles.
Yeah, you don't want to rush to that. You're not a big. You got to tell the people you're not a very big eater on the road. Like you'll try things, but you're not like a real big foodie, from what I can tell.
So where are you hearing this?
When we went to Memphis, you weren't feeling the barbecue. I guess maybe you just don't like barbecue. You had your reasons. They were kind of quirky.
Okay, that's false. I went to Memphis. We had a huge meal of barbecue. First of all, I hate going to barbecue places because when I leave barbecue places, the clothes I'm wearing need to be set on fire because they're just doused in barbecue, so I can't wear anything I like.
Yeah, that's quirky thing number one.
Okay, and non-quirky thing, I think, at least personally, is when I have a huge meal of barbecue like we did the first night we were in New Orleans, the next day I wake up and somebody says, hey, let's go to this barbecue place, like 12 hours after I was at that one, and have another huge barbecue meal. I'm not usually craving barbecue 12 hours after I have a monster meal, maybe 12 days after. But I like to do it big once, not 2 days in a row.
Okay, the first one was quirky. That one's just crazy. The more barbecue, the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. And if it's good barbecue, if you're in a place like Memphis and you're only there for a few days and only a few times out of the year, then that's when you really enjoy it and indulge.
I enjoyed, honestly, Rendezvous was okay.
Yeah, we had bad. Rendezvous bad.
Okay, I wouldn't say bad, but certainly it's not Central, which you guys went to the next day. But I've had Central before. Usually when I go to places, I do try to have, what's unique to that city. I've been eating po' boys and jambalaya and some different stuff in New Orleans.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. What are you indulging in New Orleans?
I went to. You know what I usually do? You know what my strategy is? I go to big cities, and when I get there, and I'm getting ready to go get something to eat. You know the show on Food Network, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives?
Yeah.
And Man vs. Food?
Yeah.
I usually YouTube or just Google, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, whatever big city I'm in, and it usually pops up at least 2 or 3 little YouTube clips where Guy Fieri's out, I'm at this spot, and, if it looks good on the video, I'll Google it in my maps and go to it. And that's what I did here. I went to some place called Mahoney's, which had 23 different kind of po' boys, and it was really good.
What kind of po' boy did you get?
I got 2 separate kind of half ones. One was a fried oyster, which was interesting. And then the other one was their special. It was roast beef and onion rings with some kind of, I don't even know what the sauce was, but it was really good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It was really good. It was right near the water, so I'm enjoying myself, and I think you were completely wrong in your assessment on how I travel. I try to do everything traditional on the road.
You got something set up for Philly? Cheesesteaks, Pats, Geno's? What you doing in Philly?
It's got to be a cheesesteak, right?
Yeah.
That's not a question, but what about Detroit? I don't even know.
There used to be a pizza place right down in, I think it's downtown. It might have been Greektown. I'm not sure, but Pizza Popolis, I think, was the name of the place. This deep dish pizza. You're probably not into it because you're not a foodie. But
what are you? I mean, I don't know.
we've traveled together for the playoffs. San Antonio, you're like, I'll just have some Cheetos and these
Cheetos? I'm not gonna lie,
energy
Cheetos.
bars. Slater's the type of guy who's gonna go into the lobby of the hotel and just ransack the little gift shop for like peanuts and chips and get a
Funny you
Gatorade
say
and
that
call it
because
a
I
night.
did that about. It's funny you said that because I did that about 15 minutes ago.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I mean, I usually try to eat, one big meal somewhere. Anyways, we should probably talk about the Thunder. Nobody's that concerned about my travel plans.
You're living the dream, Slater.
Yeah, that's what everyone keeps saying.
You got people coming up to you in New Orleans asking for photo requests. Shout out to that guy. What was his name? He wanted a shout out on the podcast.
I believe it was Todd Little is his name.
Shout out to Todd Little.
That was one of the first times I think in my life I've had a take a picture with me request. So definitely a huge shout out to him. But yeah. Anyway, you want to talk about the game?
Not a very good game last night.
The return. I mean, it was all right game. It wasn't great from the Thunder perspective, but it had some storylines.
What was your
Durant
biggest
return,
takeaway,
obviously.
other than Durant coming back, which I'm sure we'll talk about? What was your biggest takeaway from that game?
I think the biggest concern is kind of Serge Ibaka against elite competition. It's kind of weird because I thought he had two of his most impressive plays of the season last night, which was the pump fake drive by Anthony Davis and threw it down. And then a little later in the game, he had like a chase down, like LeBron-type chase down block on Anthony Davis, which sounds like the hardest thing to do in the entire NBA. But other than that, I mean, he was killed by Davis. I mean, you saw the stat lines. I mean, Davis's stat line is something he does pretty consistently, which was 25-10, 4, 6, and 4, 6 steals, 4 blocks, which, I mean, this dude is a legit MVP candidate at 21 for sure. But Ibaka only having 6 points and 3 rebounds in, I think, 36 minutes. You were probably going to lose that power forward matchup because Davis is the best power forward in the league, but you can't lose it that badly.
I agree.
Yeah? I mean, what do you think of Serge's game overall? I mean, why do you think he played so poor? I mean, is it just I feel like he doesn't have it. Like, you could usually rely on him in past years, like always bring the energy, always have some steady numbers. You know, he may not hit his shots every night, but, energy, defense, you didn't really worry about that with him. But this year, I don't know, it kind of just hasn't been there.
I thought a lot of people kind of got lost in the shuffle of trying to figure out their rhythm and regain their rhythm and figure out how to play again next to Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Serge Ibaka, we all assumed it was just going to be natural and just come back immediately. He's going to have a much better performance as soon as Russell Westbrook gets back, as soon as Durant gets back. He's going to help. Those guys are going to help him a lot more offensively. What I saw last night was Serge and some others at times really struggle to figure out where they fit in. I thought Reggie kind of struggled at times. Now, he finished with a really good game. He might have been, as you wrote about, he might have been the best player for the Thunder. But early on, I thought he was kind of really not being passive, but just really unsure of when to be assertive and pick and choose his spot. So I thought a lot of different guys struggled with that a little bit. Andre Robertson was a non-factor offensively. Steven Adams didn't give you pretty much anything. He was lost out there, and I think everyone was just really deferring to Durant, trying to get him involved. And then Russell Westbrook is taking a lot of shots and really trying to put pressure on defenses. And I think everyone just kind of got lost in the shuffle of those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it comes down to two matches. Because, I guess there were times where Reggie played a little passive, but I thought the bench was great overall last night. Yeah, the centers weren't great, but you don't rely too heavily on them. I think the biggest thing is you lose the power forward matchup, like, terribly. Obviously, I just talked about that. And then the point guard matchup, and Drew Holiday kind of defensively took it to Westbrook a little bit. Westbrook finished 6 of 20 shooting with 7 turnovers. That's the matchup you got to win and win pretty heavily because, well, I guess the Durant one too, but Durant was kind of guarded by Anthony Davis at times. But you need Westbrook to really outplay Drew Holiday in a game like that. And if Westbrook even plays an average game, I think they win.
Yeah, not a good night, especially defensively. Russell Westbrook, Andre Robertson, Kevin Durant, Jeremy Lamb, Reggie Jackson, none of those guys played very good defense, and that to me is a concern. I'm going to give them a pass for this first game because it is the first game. Their first time playing with the starting lineup, the new starting lineup. Kevin Durant's first game back, Russell Westbrook's second game back. But the defense should not have been that bad in this first game, especially when it's been so good throughout most of the season. But I am going to give them a pass in this first game.
Did you watch any of Brooks' post game? That was about as fiery as I've seen Brooks.
Yeah, he was trying to get out of there. Like every question, they wanted to be the last question. It was comical because he was heated.
The last one for Scott. Yeah, he was. But I would keep throwing questions because every answer was about how poorly they played defensively. But everyone gave a new version of him ripping the team. I thought it was one of his best quote-wise, soundbite-wise, maybe one of his best post-game.
Yeah, what he said about the street ball.
He said, "When you play a pickup game, that's what happens."
Yeah.
Which that's a very good Brooks quote. And then he was like, "Yeah, I know we're athletic, but every team in this league is athletic. You can't just out-jump people." I think that was kind of a direct shot at some of the Thunder's. Obviously they're star players who just think they can, go out there and not play fundamentally at times on defense.
Hey Slater, can you settle something for me?
Yeah, sure.
I'm trying to figure out why when Reggie Jackson gets torched, it's all over the radio, it's all on blogs, it's all, fans are only talking about it, it's on Twitter. But when it happens to Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, nobody says anything.
I feel like there's kind of this, immunity that they've developed, especially Westbrook, because he was and still is at times offensively unfairly criticized. We've all seen it, the shot selection, the Skip Bayless mentality of, this isn't his team, why is he taking the most shots? He was kind of been unfairly criticized so much early in his career that now it's like, it's almost taboo to criticize him because, everyone knows. He is a top 5 player, top 10 player in the NBA.
Top 3 in my mind.
Top 3?
Top 3. Well, third.
He's third. Then obviously that would put him above Chris Paul. And are you now planning him as the best point guard in the league, which you wouldn't do earlier this season?
No, and I've been on the record on that. I think Chris Paul is still a better point guard. He still is a better floor general. But in terms of overall
they both
player,
play point guard, right? They're both point guards, right?
Russell Westbrook has the ball in his hands. He's not nearly the floor general Chris Paul is. And
Russell Westbrook are like always top 10, top 15 in the league in assists. They both play point guard?
They both play point guard, yes.
Who's a better player?
Russell Westbrook.
That answers the question.
He's a better player. He's not a better point guard.
I don't
you can distinguish the two.
You can play a position in a different way than another guy plays a position.
I'm not saying you can't. But I'm saying when it comes to running a team, when it comes to getting guys good shots, setting up teammates, controlling the pace, the flow of the game, Chris Paul is worlds better than Russell Westbrook in that aspect of the game, which is what your point guard should do.
In a different way.
Excuse me?
Russell Westbrook just controls the game in a different way. He calls his own number a few more times. Just like a guy like Michael Vick, who changed the quarterback position when he got to the Falcons. He didn't throw it as much as a Peyton Manning. He called his own number. He ran the ball
more. Russell Westbrook was the point guard that Chris Paul is, Steven Adams and Serge Ibaka wouldn't have combined for 8 points last night.
Yeah, if Chris Paul was the player, Russell Westbrook is, he'd have more, 30. He wouldn't. Westbrook wouldn't be the only guy in history with 32 points and 8 assists in less than 24 minutes.
That's great. He's a great scoring point guard. Westbrook is a great scoring point guard. I just said he's the third best player in the NBA. He's not. I'm not taking anything away from Russell Westbrook, but at the same time, I am saying that Chris Paul does things for his team offensively that Russell Westbrook cannot do as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think you're
They play
listening to
different
it.
styles, and I
Yeah, they
agree.
do. But I think you're listening to it and saying, like, oh, that's a slight against Russell Westbrook. It's not. Chris Paul, to me, is the best playmaker in the game. And I don't think it's close in terms of being able to take over offensively and get his teammates involved. Russell Westbrook doesn't do it nearly as consistently and effectively as Chris Paul, and that's been proven. Like, to me, I don't even think it's close. I don't think it's a debate. Like, that's just how I see it.
I think what you're saying just logically doesn't make sense. I mean,
how does it not make sense?
They both play point guard. One's a better player than the other, which, using your own words, Westbrook's a better player than Paul, making him the best point guard in the league. I mean, they just do it in different styles, and I understand what you're saying. Like, Paul does it a different way. But, I mean, if you're taking one point guard, and you could choose the two. You're starting your team tomorrow, and you can have one of the two. Who are you taking?
It depends on what I'm looking for. Am I looking for someone who's going to score? Like, if I got Kevin Durant, maybe I'm taking Chris Paul because I got my 32 point per game scorer right there in Kevin Durant. Maybe Chris Paul is a better player for guys like Andre Robertson and Serge Ibaka, guys who can't get their own shots. Steven Adams, Kendrick Perkins. Kevin Durant's going to carry my offense. If I got him, maybe I take Chris Paul because Chris Paul is going to get those other guys involved and make sure that my offense doesn't bog down.
Would you trade Paul for Westbrook straight up right now if you're the Thunder?
No, I wouldn't.
Just because of long-term ramifications? But what if I said just strictly this season?
I think Russell Westbrook, again, I think Russell Westbrook is the third best player. The answer is no. I think Russell Westbrook is the third best player. I think his competitive fire puts him, as well as his athleticism, gives him strengths that very few people, if anyone else in the league, has.
And that adds to him being the best point guard.
That adds to him being a better player. But in terms of running his team, he cannot run a team as well as Chris Paul. Like, can he run a team as well as Chris Paul? Answer me that.
I mean, yeah, because he can call his own number better.
Is that running a team or is that calling your own number?
Well, if it's leading a team to wins, I'd rather have Westbrook. I mean, isn't that the whole, in the grand scheme, isn't that what it's about? I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I agree Paul is a better, facilitator. Westbrook's a better scorer. There's just different ways to do things, and there's different ways to be effective in every aspect of life, and I just think in the game of basketball, I mean, they're both incredible players, top 5 players, but I just think Westbrook is more effective, affects the game more than Paul does.
I agree with that. But offensively, in terms of getting his teammates open shots, settling his team down, running his team from an offensive standpoint in terms of the flow, the pace, the tempo, orchestrating the offense.
You're just talking about Paul's strength right now, which I agree
with. He does those things much better at a much higher level than Russell Westbrook ever has.
Yeah, I mean, you're just talking about Paul's strengths, and I agree with that. And then we can just take Westbrook's strengths, which are much better than Paul in those areas. And
which is why I've said for the third time now that Russell Westbrook is a better player, but can continue.
I know it's just weird to me that you can say Westbrook's a better player, but Paul's a better point guard when they both play the same position. They've always played the same position. And if Westbrook's a better player, he's a better point guard. I mean, that's just how I kind of view it because I just think there's different ways to do things.
Okay.
We're not getting. I mean, I don't think we're getting anywhere here because I just don't agree with your logic.
All right.
But anyway, what were we talking about before you flipped that in?
I don't even remember.
I don't either.
I didn't bring that up. You did.
Well, I mean, I think you were talking something Westbrook, and you mentioned him as a top 3 player, which didn't logically make sense because you're.
Yeah, you said top 5 player. We were talking about the criticism that they don't get the criticism when they get torched defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just think it's kind of a lot more taboo for people to criticize Westbrook and Durant than it is Jackson.
That's just something.
You've written about it a ton. I mean, with his off-season comments, with him saying he's a star, with this and that. Now he's just become like if he does anything wrong, Jackson, he kind of gets criticized. Like, hey, you say you're a star, well, let's see it.
Yeah, I just don't understand why people. We're talking about 2 of the best 3 players in the world who are in their 7th and 8th season respectively. or 8th and 9th. I've lost track. But as opposed to a guy who's in his 4th year and he's not even in the top probably 50 of players. And it's cool to criticize one guy who people consider the 4th best player on this team, but then 2 of the best 3 players in the world, it's like, when they don't play good defense, we'll just turn the page on to the next game.
Yeah, I actually thought Reggie was the Thunder's best player last night overall. Obviously, Durant, got his. He got 27, but I thought Jackson, in the moments of the game where the Thunder played best, were second unit pockets of the game. And I thought he was the key to that. He was really good offensively. I think his plus-minus was pretty good. That kind of brings me – I kind of want to talk about this bench. This bench has got to – I think – I mean, this may be a little early, but I think now that everyone's kind of back in the roles they were expected to be in, I think this guy has potential to be one of the best benches in the NBA. Especially if Lamb keeps playing like he's been.
Hey, don't we say that every year?
What?
That it has the potential to be the best in the NBA? About the bench?
I don't know. I mean, I've only covered this team 2 seasons, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, you missed the James Harden days, so it's been that way for a while. And it always seems to be that way for a stretch, and then the postseason rolls around.
Okay. I want to look at the other benches in the West. I mean, because you're right. It doesn't really matter too much during the regular season because there's so many nights they're going to look great. They're going to look great against the Utah bench that they outscored 44-3 the other night because Utah's bench is just embarrassingly bad. But let's look at it. There's like 7 top teams in the West right now. They're all playing like 700 ball. I'm gonna name their benches. You tell me if you think the Thunder second unit's better.
Okay.
All right, Clippers. Clippers got Jordan Farmar, Jamal Crawford, Reggie Bullock, Glenn Davis, and Spencer Hawes is kind of their second unit, their second 5.
I'd take the Thunders.
Yeah, Crawford's probably the best. Who's better, Jackson or Crawford? I mean,
Jackson's better overall. Jamal Crawford's a better scorer.
Yeah, Jamal Crawford's such a dynamic guy to have because he can come out and win you a game at any time.
Although Reggie's getting there. I mean, you saw when Reggie had the green light, like Jamal Crawford has always had in those situations off the bench. I mean, Reggie averaged 20 when he had the green light as a starter.
Yeah, Reggie's developing the trust to get the green light. Jamal Crawford came into the league saying, "I have the green light. I am giving myself the green light." But okay, I think Clippers are one of the better second units, and you just said Thunder are better. And I'm strictly going.
Shocking! You think the Clippers have a really good team?
Well, they do, but all right. I'm just going to look at like the who people would call contenders, which are 7 teams in the West and 2 teams in the East. So that's already one you say the Thunder is better. Okay, here's the Grizzlies. Beno Udrih, Jordan Adams, Vince Carter, John Lure, Kosta Koufos. That's the second 5, but I mean you can add Quincy Pondexter and Tayshaun Prince. They kind of play the same position as Carter, but they get minutes.
I'd take the Thunders. They got more of a blend of offense and defense on the Thunder. The Grizzlies, those names don't jump out at you. Vince Carter, obviously, but he's way past his prime. They fit together well.
Yeah.
And even though they don't have the star power or name recognition as most other benches, like a Jamal Crawford or maybe a Reggie Jackson, something like that, they know how to play well together and complement their first strength, which is all that matters. I mean, you don't have to have big names. So I think they're up there, but I'd still take the Thunders.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is I think Scott Brooks, he won't be able to do it as much in the playoffs, but Scott Brooks does, I think, a little bit more than other teams. He plays like all bench unit. Like he won't have starters on the floor.
I think he's getting a little carried away with that.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Although last night that was their best stretches of the game. But I agree. You playing 11 guys in the first 13 minutes of the game.
I feel like Lance Thomas's 4 minutes last night were like token minutes. Hey, we appreciate what you did. We're not just gonna. Yeah, thank you. We're not gonna just send you down to the end of the bench or cut you. Like, you're still a big part of this team. Whereas on Friday in Philly, he's probably not going to play. Well, unless they
Yeah,
blow him out.
he played New Orleans too. Thomas played, New Orleans the last 3 years. So maybe it was like, hey, here's this. But guess what? Mitch McGary's coming back, and Jones is on his way, so you're going to be inactive for a while. Anyway, during this discussion, we should probably give the Thunder second unit quick. Obviously, Reggie Jackson, and then you got two dynamic. Reggie Jackson's going to be a sixth man of the year candidate. You got two shooter scorers with Lamb and Anthony Morrow. You got a good big man defensive combo with Nick Collison and Kendrick Perkins, and then. I think the second unit could be really good if Perry Jones can come back and play anywhere near he was early in the season. And then, me and you both kind of think Mitch McGary will eventually, maybe even soon, be a guy fighting for minutes with his energy. So, that's a pretty deep bench and young.
It's good.
Overall.
And you got the big fella, Kendrick Perkins, balling.
Well, not last night. He didn't ball last night, but he's having a better year than he has in the last few.
8 rebounds for the big fella last night. 19 minutes off the bench.
Hey, how about that post up he laid down on Anthony Davis?
Hey, that was not good. Like everyone who's ever watched the Thunder game saw that possession developing and was like, just pass it. Just pass it now and save yourself the time. And then sure enough, like that block would have been like Anthony Davis blocking me.
Yeah. Oh, Kendrick Perkins post-ups weirdly were like pretty efficient and a decent use of the offense early in the first month. But now that Durant and Westbrook are back and Jackson will, he'll always be on the floor with at least one, but usually two or three of Durant, Westbrook, and Jackson. There's like really no need to ever post up Kendrick Perkins anymore. And he did it like I think 4 times last night.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times, like plays ended with a Perk ISO post up. There shouldn't be 4 times the rest of the year that happens if everyone's healthy.
I'd like to see him go to Surge. Anyway, finish your bench breakdown.
All right, Warriors. Sean Livingston, Brandon Rush, Andre Iguodala, David Lee, although David Lee, I'm just saying that, but I think David Lee usually – who's going to start when he's back?
I think
healthy?
he's going to start.
Okay, so then this one I think might actually be better than the Thunder's. Sean Livingston, Brandon Rush, Andre Iguodala, Draymond Green, and Maurice Spates. Mo Buckets killed the Thunder.
Yeah,
for 28.
again, they fit well together. Individually, Andre Iguodala is probably the only guy up there who is as talented as the top talent on the Thunder's bench and Reggie Jackson. But individually,
Draymond Green, great player.
Together, they fit. They fit collectively. They fit well together.
What do you think about Mo Buckets? Is he for real? Steve Kerr was palming him for 6th man of the year.
He's a good player.
Yeah, he'll let Kendrick Perkins know about that too. Okay, this is an interesting one because I think name-wise it's not great, but everyone knows what they've done in the past. The Spurs second unit. Patty Mills, although it's Corey Joseph right now because Patty Mills is hurt, but it will be Patty Mills, Manu Ginobili, Marco Bellinelli, Aaron Baines. Diaw will typically, I think, be in that second unit when Splitter's back, but Splitter's hurt right now, so Diaw's starting. But, that second unit, we keep talking about the fit of that second unit being better than maybe the talent.
Yeah, I think a key word is system, too. And I think the Thunder, the Thunder doesn't have a bunch of big names. Reggie Jackson's the best player. And then it's a big drop-off from there. Jeremy Lamb's inconsistent. Perry Jones is inconsistent. Mitch McGary's a rookie. So it's not like the individuals are world beaters for the Thunder either. So I think it's not just the fit, but it's the system that the teams put around those players, and the Spurs have obviously done a great job of it. And the Thunder, you can see their second unit for quite some time now has had a system to where those guys are really effective. It makes those players have success, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing with the Thunder.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. I think the Thunder has the ingredients to be a really, really good bench, and they have been, lately. And if they can, take the talent that they have and fit together like the other second units, that's when I think they can become a top 5 type bench. These next two are bad. I think. These are two teams that are fringe contenders, and I think the Thunder in a playoff series would have an extreme advantage in the second unit. First one's the Blazers. Steve Blake, Will Barton, Darrell Wright, Thomas Robinson, Chris Kaman. You can add C.J. McCollum in there, too. But, that's not a very good second unit.
No.
They're very reliant on their starters.
Yeah, it doesn't impress me.
No. And then I think even a worse one. I think this is the worst of the playoff type contenders. The Houston Rockets. Isaiah Cannon or Nick Johnson at the one, Jason Terry, Kostas. How do you say Papa Nakalo?
Papa. Let's call him Papa.
Kostas Papa. Francisco Garcia. Throw that in there. He's the best player,
buddy.
according to you, right?
Francisco Garcia.
Terrence Jones will probably start, which would put he's out right now, but Monty Hunis that would put him at the 4, and then Tariq Black at center.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, talk about relying heavily on starters. That's even worse than the Blazers, I think.
It speaks a lot to how good James Harden has been, the fact that they've been this successful with that team. Dwight Howard's been hurt. Terrence Jones been hurt. Patrick Beverly's been hurt. And Houston just keeps
Trevor
rolling.
Reeves is playing well.
Yeah, Trevor Reeves has played well.
But, Harden's been good. They've had a really easy schedule, but...
They did. They have had an easy schedule. Good point.
I agree, though. Okay. One of the better second units, I think. Chicago Bulls. Maybe the best in the league.
Second units? Bulls?
I really like it.
Aaron Brooks?
Look, Aaron Brooks has been pretty good this year, at least.
Yeah.
Kirk Heinrich, underrated. Behind Jimmy Butler. Who's starting there? Jimmy Butler. Yeah, Jimmy Butler's starting. Yeah, Kirk Heinrich. Doug McBuckets getting buckets when he plays. And then obviously, I think maybe sixth man of the year favorite right now, Taj Gibson. And then, I guess Nazir Muhammad. But they got that Nikola Mirotic guy coming off the bench who seems to have a lot of potential when he gets in the floor. They don't really play Muhammad much. So, I don't know. I think that's got a chance to be a really good second unit.
It all depends on Derrick Rose's health.
Yes, it does. And then the last one was the Cavs I was looking at just because I was figuring title contenders. It's pretty bad. Dellavedova, Dion Waiters, Mike Miller, Tristan Thompson, Brendan Haywood. Not good. Hasn't been good.
Yeah. Yeah, the Thunder's right there. Their bench could win them a lot of games in the regular season, or not a lot of games, but some games in the regular season.
They could win them some in the postseason. You don't play your bench as much, but those little pockets of the game are always important.
Yeah.
Can Reggie win Sixth Man of the Year? What's the requirements? You have to play
you just gotta start.
Games
You just gotta. I think it's as simple as
more games off the bench than you start, right?
Play more than you start. That's it. Play more off the bench than you start.
Yeah, as long as Westbrook remains healthy the entire season.
Yeah, he's well on pace for that.
Yeah. Jackson has a good chance, I think, to win Sixth Man.
Yeah, the Thunder's got to start winning some games, and he's going to have similar games off the bench as he did as a starter. He's got to have some 20-point games. He's got to put himself in that conversation because I think he is going in that direction, but I still think people look at guys like Taj Gibson, Jamal Crawford more than they do Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, but you got to think he's going to have those 20-point games. He did it last year off the bench, and he killed the Spurs, and every game had over 20 points, and I think 2 or 3 of them were off the bench.
Yeah, he's got to start doing it though. You
talked about him not having that great a game last night. He finished with 17 points, 4 assists.
No, wait a second now. I just said there were times where I felt like he was kind of unsure of when to take over, when to do what, and kind of got lost in the mix of Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant being back on the floor at times. Not a lot because, like you said, the bench did carry him. I didn't think he. I never said I didn't think he had a great game. I thought he played well. I agree with you. I think he was probably the Thunder's best player. I just think, like other players, he probably got a little lost at times.
Yeah, potentially. But okay, another quick question. I mean, we've talked about the last couple of weeks, kind of. Have you given up on Jeremy Lamb because he'd been bad? He's bad in the second half last year, bad in summer league, not good in preseason, not good early in the season. He's put together 3 straight really good games.
Yeah, I've given up on believing in him as a consistent player at this point in his career. So yeah, I still believe in him, but I don't believe that he's consistent at this stage in his career.
Because he has put 3 straight consistent good games up. I mean, I'll read you the game logs quick. He went 7 of 8 for 21 points, had 3 steals and a block against Utah, which was a huge game. He went 3 of 5 for 13 points against the Knicks in 22 minutes. And last night, in only 15 minutes, had 15 points, 5 of 7 shooting. Probably should have got more minutes last night. I don't know the last time, probably the first half of last season, that he has had 3 straight good games. Did that change? I mean, did that give you a little bit more optimism, or are you still waiting to see?
No, it doesn't give me any more optimism because he can come out Philly, Detroit, and Milwaukee and have 3 stinkers. I mean, that's kind of where we are with Jeremy Lamb. You don't know what you're going to get from game to game, and you just can't trust players like that. So that's where I am with Jeremy Lamb. I still like him as a player. I still love his potential. I still think he can be a big addition to this team or a big asset for this team. But right now, I don't trust him, and I might not the rest of the year.
Yeah. All right. Last discussion. The playoffs. There's some people out there that think it's like becoming such a long shot that the Thunder can make the playoffs, which, I don't necessarily agree with. But, I mean, where are you in this discussion right now?
I have been on the record in saying I don't think there's any doubt they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I've kind of been surprised about how, adamant people are about how tough it's going to be. If only 7 teams made the Western Conference playoffs, I think it'd be real hard. It's kind of crazy right now. There is 7 teams in the West playing over 700 basketball. The Clippers are 12-5 and they're in 7th, which means they're on like a 58-win pace, and they'd still be the 7th seed, which is nuts. But after that's a big drop off to the Suns. The Suns are 11-8. That's like 58, 580 winning percentage. I kind of think the Suns are taking a step back this year. I really don't think they're like. How many wins do you think the Suns are going to end up with?
Probably 45.
45-ish, right? And so they're right now they're the 8th seed, and you think around 45 is. The Kings are right behind them at 9-9 as the 9th seed, tied with the Nuggets. I mean, the Kings and Nuggets at most are probably going to end up for 500, which would be about 41-41. The Pelicans are 8-8. I mean, they looked good last night, but I mean, those all seem like 500 type teams. So if we're talking about the Suns, as the 8th seed right now, is the only team we can see really keeping that 8th seed at 45 wins. The Thunder don't got to win 50 like everyone's saying. Yeah. To get that 8th seed, they got to win maybe around 46, which is very doable. So I don't think it's as daunting a task as everyone keeps discussing. I do think if you want to climb past the 8th seed, it would be, but just get in, right?
Yeah, and another team I look at is the Rockets because, like you said, they've had an easy schedule. They got Terrence Jones, their starting power forward, who had no feeling in his leg for a while with a nerve injury. So Dwight Howard's battling the injury. They're really top-heavy roster. They've had an easy schedule. I think they're going to come back down and fall to that 6th, 7th, 8th spot, and that's another team the Thunder could potentially catch. So while people are saying, 8th seed or bust, I still think they could get maybe 7 because you got the Rockets and the Suns in that group right now that I think are going to have some slippage as the season goes on.
The weird thing to me is, not weird, but it's just 7 or, can they get to 8? Well, maybe they can get to 7. the difference between the 7 and 8 seed really, truly doesn't matter. Because let's say the Thunder get up to the 7 seed and hop, the Rockets. Well, the Rockets is an 8 seeder. Not, the Thunder wouldn't be able to play them until the Western Conference Finals, and I don't think an 8 seed that's not the Thunder is going to make the Western Conference Finals. So they won't have home court against anyone, basically, if they're the 7 or if they're the 8.
But it matters if I think teams are going to jockey to get out of whatever slot they'd have to face the Thunder. It matters if you have to play the Spurs as opposed to the Warriors. Now, the Warriors have firepower, but they haven't been there. So do you want to come out there and play a championship team out of the gate, or do you want to play a team that hasn't, had very much playoff success and, maybe you could beat those guys?
You're right, but you're definitely right in that sense. But right now we don't know who's going to be the 1 and 2. So, there's a chance you might want to be the 8 over. As far as teams, you're right, teams up top will be jockeying to not play the Thunder. The Thunder may be jockeying, hey, we'd rather be the 8 and play the Warriors at 1 than 7 and play the Spurs at 2.
Yeah, that's why I say it matters. 7, 8 kind of matters for the Thunder. Which could be.
But you don't know which one they want. Because you might want the 8 over the 7.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Because let's say the Warriors are 1 and the Spurs are 2.
If the Spurs are 1, you definitely don't want to play the Spurs in the first round. The Spurs don't want to play the Thunder in the first round, frankly.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, what if the Spurs are 2 and the Warriors or Grizzlies are 1? You want 8. You'd rather have 8 over 7, right?
Right.
So, that's just the interesting part of it. How bad are you going to feel if you're Memphis? You're 15-2 right now. Let's say they keep this strong run. They got the 1 seed in the West, and it's like, who are you playing? Oh, you're playing the Thunder.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that again. I kind of do, and I kind of want the Grizzlies. I want the Thunder to knock out the Grizzlies again. It'd be such a good storyline.
The Memphis radio contingent and media contingent would just be flipping out.
John Brown, gritgrind.com. That's my favorite. That's one of my favorite. Next to my man Ramos down in Miami. What's his name?
Who?
The guy who was asking the crazy questions in Miami, the press conferences. Something Ramos.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but anyway, next to him, the guy from gritgrind.com in Memphis is my favorite guy in the post-game interview sessions. I just love the name of their blog, gritgrind.com.
It's a solid name. Memphis would be interesting. What team up top do you think the Thunder would prefer? Grizzlies, Warriors? I don't think the Blazers or Rockets will be up there. Spurs may. Do you think the Mavs got the potential to get up there? Clippers,
no, I don't. I think the Thunder matches up best with the Grizzlies. And they still match up well with the Spurs. But the Spurs got some weapons that they
you don't want the Spurs in round 1.
No, you don't. But I'm saying. But the point is, they match up well with them. Although Kawhi Leonard is coming and he can make things tough on them, with his defensive impact on Durant and Russell Westbrook at this point. So that's becoming a tougher matchup than it was 2 years ago.
What do you think about maybe wanting the Spurs in the first round? Because in the last few years. Last year, the Spurs went 7 with a Mavs team that wasn't that good in the first round and didn't go 7 with anyone else. That was technically kind of their toughest series. They seemed to gain momentum as the playoffs go on. They were better every round. They were really good in the Blazers round. They got even better against the Thunder, and then in the finals, they were unbeatable against the Heat. Do you maybe want the Spurs early before they catch a rhythm? You
can make that argument, but I still wouldn't want them. Because they generally still win, even though if they're not at their best at that time. So, I wouldn't want to see them in the first round.
Agreed.
I think the Grizzlies would be the best first round opponent. If it's between those three, the Grizzlies, Warriors, Spurs, I think it's the Grizzlies. The Warriors put pressure on you offensively, and for whatever reason, the Thunder just can't seem to make it a defensive game against the Warriors when everyone's healthy. Obviously, they had this random game where both teams shot like 28% in Oklahoma City a couple weeks back, but they always make it a track meet, and that's not the best way for the Thunder to play.
Meanwhile, out east,
oh boy,
it's bad. It's bad.
Hey, my Wizards are in the second place.
The 2 seed. Okay, so there's 7 teams in the West playing over 700 basketball right now. There's one team in the East doing that, the Raptors at 14-4. The Wizards are 11-5, which is 688, and they're the 2 seed. Without looking at the standings, I'm hoping you don't have them up right now.
I'm actually looking at them.
All right.
What were you going to say?
I was going to try to have you go 1 through 8 and see if you can name them. It's Raptors, Wizards, Atlanta Hawks, the number 3 seed at 10-6 right now. Bulls at 4. I thought the Bulls had a better record than 11-7. Cavs at 5, 9-7. How about that 4-5 first round matchup? Bulls, Cavs. The Heat at 9-8 or 6. The Bucks at 10. They have 7 teams over 500. That's kind of surprising. And then the Nets are the 8 seed at 7-9.
That's a bad conference. I haven't read Zach Lowe's piece yet on eliminating conferences. Have you?
No, I mean, it's kind of something I've been meaning to, but I've just been on the road.
Yeah, I got to get to it. I heard a lot of good things about it, but I want to see kind of how he lays out his argument. Yeah,
well, good thing for the Thunder. Good news, they're sitting at 5-13, but their next 2 games are against the Pistons and Sixers, who have a combined 3-32 record.
Jeez. Detroit's underperforming. The Knicks are underperforming. The Hornets could be the most disappointing team in the league so far. And then obviously you got Philly, who just not trying.
Yeah, I mean, you also got the Celtics in that conference, 4-11. The Magic are like weirdly decent, and then the Pacers are competitive, even though their roster's so depleted. East is not good. That's not breaking news, though.
Yeah.
All right, you got to get to practice?
Yeah, I got to get to practice and see what the fighting Kevin Durants have to say for themselves today.
Yeah. All right. Well, I usually open it and I usually close it, but you opened it today, so you got to close it.
Peace.
Durant, pull-up jumper off the rim and and the Thunder win!
All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.